Hey there, everybody. How are you? Welcome to Tuesday Night Lives in the Launching Life with Autism Facebook group. This group is for parents who are new to autism, who are struggling with the chaos that autism has brought to their lives. If that sounds like you and you want to get calm, understand, and connect with your child, then you are in the right place. And I am your host, Erin Porter. I went through this chaos during 28 years in education, and now I'm on a mission to help parents get through it too. What I learned and implemented in those 28 years in the classroom and in spec ed has helped hundreds of teachers and parents calm the chaos that autism has brought to their lives. Now, before we get started, if you've popped on, please say hi. So I know who's here. Facebook always tells me the number of people who are viewing, but never who is here. So I love it when you say hello. Hi, Crystal. Hi, Sharon. Today we're discussing the autism loop. Hi, Mary. If you are feeling, and Nikki, hello. If you're feeling stuck in what seems like an endless loop, where you feel overwhelmed, your child feels overwhelmed, nothing seems to get better, I want you to know something incredibly important. You are not alone, and there is another way. Hi, Melanie and Emily. I love that you say hello, everyone. Thanks. Sometimes when people don't say hello, it feels like I'm talking to myself. So thank you. I appreciate the hi. Hi, Justine. I love that you're all here. So drop a quick hello if you're here so I can wave at you and say hi. Let's break this cycle. I want to draw it for you because I'm visual and I used to be a teacher, so I like whiteboards too. I want to show you this. Maybe the visual will help some of you understand. So autism is up here. I'm just going to do short forms because it's easier too for drawing. So autism is up here. Whether you have a diagnosis of autism or you suspect autism, the word autism has become part of your life, and that causes chaos for parents. What's next? What do you do? There's chaos involved in this. And then so over here, parents become worried, upset, overwhelmed. So this is parents. Upset, worried, overwhelmed. That goes there. Then down here, we get struggles. Struggles that can't be managed. So here we've got struggles. And that could be your struggle, that could be your child's struggle. Things start going kind of sideways when there's struggles that you can't manage, right? So there's autism in your life, parents get upset and overwhelmed, there's struggles that you can't manage, and then the kids get upset, right? So we'll just put kids upset. And that looks like overwhelmed, they're overwhelmed, you're overwhelmed. So that happens. And then it goes back here. This is where it gets kind of interesting because it goes from here where the kids are upset and overwhelmed back to autism causing chaos. And a lot of times parents say, oh, well, it's autism. This is how it's going to be. This is how we have to live. And then it goes around and around and around again. And parents can get stuck, and kids too, in so many loops. Many people have more than one loop going on at a time at the same time. So I'm talking about this tonight because after last week's live about therapies and how they can feel like band-aids, I had so many people comment to me about things like we're on a treadmill that we can't get off of. It feels like it never ends. We just keep going in circles. I can't even go to work because of all the problems that I have to keep solving. I have to be available all the time to solve my child's problem. Nothing is making anything better. These are all loops that people are in. I even talked to one mom after that live stream last week who said she had 3 kids all who struggle with eating, sleeping, toileting, coping, self care, 5 things. Each of them struggled with 5 things. And each of those kids had um, strategies, therapies, professionals for each of those things. So she potentially had 15 things going on to support each, well, to support all of the children with each of those problems. Does that make sense? So 3 kids struggling with 5 things each, and each thing has a different separate solution. Does that make sense? That, my friends, is the perfect example of the autism loop. So, our first big mindset here is like mindset shift here is the silo problem. I want to walk you through this. Why does our medical system put autism struggles in different silos? And we keep hearing that waits for therapies are so long and waits for diagnoses can be even longer because there's so many kids needing services that it can be so hard. But it feels to me like our system isn't working. This mindset shift that I think we all need to make involves looking at the traditional approach in a different way. And let me preface this by saying that this is not a rant about therapies and that they don't work. Um, I think our therapists are amazing people. And they love our kids and do phenomenal jobs. I refer people to therapists. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about our medical system as a whole and how our approach to autism needs to shift because there's a better way than going in circles like this. Let me explain. First is the specialist trap. So our medical system is designed to send you to different specialists for different problems. So sleep issues, well, you go see a sleep therapist or a sleep specialist. Or eating issues, you go to a feeding therapist or a dietitian. Toileting, well, that could be OT. But your child isn't a collection of different problems. They're a whole person. So you end up in this loop trying to find a solution for each problem. There's a loop here with sleep. You've got a loop here with food. You've got a loop here with toileting. And you just keep going around and around in the loop. Then there's some disconnected treatment plans. This happens sometimes to parents where each professional gives you a different strategy with different schedules and different expectations. And there's little connection among the therapists. So you could end up with a binder full of sometimes conflicting advice that's impossible to implement consistently. Does that sound familiar? I once helped a family here whose 5-year-old son, who was in kindergarten, had private speech therapy, speech at school, and OT. And they were all working on communication. Each of these therapists were lovely, professional, and very supportive and super kind people. Each of them gave the parents the best advice that they had, and it all conflicted. So the private speech therapist was getting the child to use the picture exchange system. The speech therapist at school was using a core board. And then the OT was trying to get them to use sign language for some things. So the child started to refuse to go to therapy in school because all of this was so confusing. Once we figured out that everyone was operating in their own silo, we realized this little boy was actually being given 3 different types of communication to learn and sort out which environment he had to use each one of them in. It was so overwhelming that he just melted down and wouldn't go. And then we get back in this loop with the same thing happening. The parent gets upset, there's struggles, the child gets upset, and we go back, well, it's just autism and this is the way it has to be. It's not the way that it has to be. It is overwhelming when you get into a loop like this. It's confusing. And just like the parent that I told you about a few minutes ago who had 3 kids, each with 5 problems, and potentially 15 different things going on for her to manage. Now, I know I'm going to sound like a broken record, but I have to bring up the self regulation part and why these seemingly separate problems are actually connected, which really, in my opinion, is actually really exciting. What if I told you that all those challenges, those 5 things, sleeping, eating, playing, toileting, self care, coping, what if all those things were just symptoms of one problem, not 5 separate problems? We just took all of your problems and narrowed them down to one. That's one loop now, not 5. Is this making sense? Okay, now let's talk about why you're so exhausted, if you're exhausted. A lot of parents told me this week they were exhausted by the treadmill. And I also want to show you why it doesn't have to be this way. I keep saying it over and over. Autism doesn't have to be hard. Here's why it is hard. Some parents find that therapies put a lot of the responsibility on the parent to manage their child's challenges. You become the human schedule, the sensory detective, like what's going on, what do we need to do, like the environmental engineer within your home or the places that you're going, and the emotional translator 24/7. No wonder you're exhausted. This approach creates children who are dependent on their parents to manage them. And it creates burnt out parents. That's a loop. Then there's many interventions that focus on getting children to comply rather than building their internal regulation. When therapies prioritize compliance and skill building, we create an illusion of progress. So parents see a little bit of progress with toileting or communication or using a fork or getting dressed. But this is just a skill. It's not creating independence. That's a loop because they're still dependent on you. And then there's the missing partnership. The most effective approaches view parents and children as partners in building self-regulation, not the parent as the manager and the child as the project. What I mean by this is sometimes parents think, okay, we got to fix sleep, we got to fix their eating, we have to fix communication, we have to fix their coping. I want them to stop saying no. We got to fix that. This creates a loop because parents put things in place to manage their child. It's still not creating independence. Does that make sense? When we shift the thinking into like a partnership model, you and your child develop new skills in your relationship. And that translates to confidence, connection, and shifts behavior. It lightens the load for everyone. Does that make sense? Okay. I know many of you are living in this reality of these loops. That explanation I just gave about the partnership, if that's something that you want to explore, a partnership, then just type partnership in the comments. Um, if you're ready to explore a different approach, let's review. Okay. Here's a cycle that so many parents tell me that they are in, and you can have more than one cycle. Autism causes chaos. Parents get upset and overwhelmed. There are struggles that can't be managed. The children get upset, and it goes right back to the top where autism gets blamed. And the cycle starts again. And many parents say to me, well, my child has autism, so this is just the way that it's going to be. You don't have to settle for that. So, what does breaking the cycle look like? So, it happens when we see the challenges are connected rather than siloed. They're symptoms of one problem, not individual problems. Things change. You break the cycle when you look at regulation as the foundation. And when you build parent-child partnerships rather than create the parent burden and see the child as a project. This becomes a completely different trajectory when you do this. Your child develops self-regulation to use their skills independently. You gain confidence and understanding, and daily life becomes much more manageable for everyone. Because here's another loop. Parents tell me this all the time, that their child is capable, they just don't do it. They can use a fork, but they'd rather use their hands instead. It's not like they don't have the skill of using a fork, they just don't do it. They can use the toilet, but they hold it until a diaper is put on them. That's very common. They can get dressed, but they don't seem to care if they're in clothes. So instead of settling for those outcomes, for doing this cycle and settling right here with, well, it is what it is, and getting overwhelmed, we build regulation. Instead of struggling with all those separate problems, we address the one root cause. Instead of more meltdowns, we create connections. You don't have to stay stuck in this cycle. You can break free from this by looking in a completely different direction. Away from siloed approaches, away from symptom management, and away from the parent burden. Towards integrating, understanding, self-regulation, and true partnership. So if you're ready to explore this different direction, type partnership down there in the comments. I will reach out to everyone who types the word partnership, and we'll talk if you'd like. I am happy to point you in a different direction. And I'm excited for a journey for you that has hope and that can be different. I know hundreds and hundreds, well, we have almost 5,000 parents in our group who are stuck in a cycle. I would like to look at the way we can support our children from a different perspective. And if it works, let's do it. Thanks for joining me today. Until next time, remember, you're not alone. I'm here for you. You can always reach out. And if you type partnership, I'm going to reach out to you. Have a great evening. Bye.